not really live. They just changed everything today. Everything has changed. It's really weird. Everything on StreamYard. Do you ever use StreamYard's platform?
No, I don't think I've ever used this one.
It's all changed today. And then Instagram, like I was just messing around with it on my desktop, and it like now I guess you can post from your computer, is that new? That never used to be that way.
That's
Like
strange.
everything's like when you're used to something and it's like,
Oh yeah.
so I
YouTube does
was
that all the time. It's like
Well,
constant
I
changes.
hate it though. I hate it when stores like completely rearrange their shit and I'm like, I'm in a hurry and I'm like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like I know where
Mhm.
my stuff's at and then it's like gone. It drives me bats. But before we start officially, I tried to just do youtube.com/swamp dweller and nothing came up. So did you customize your YouTube channel yet or not yet?
I think it's Swamp Dweller Reads. I think the Reads is at the end of there.
Okay, hold on. Because if it is, I'll change the ticker.
Let me double check on that. Yeah, it's Swamp Dweller Reads. Yeah.
Hold on, let me make sure. READS, correct?
Yes.
Okay, let me change this then. Trying to get better with putting people's stuff on here. Okay, nice. Save. Show. There, it's on there. Okay, so we'll just start, and at the end, after you drop off, when I say goodbye and we clap, then
Mhm.
I'll go back in and do some other drops that go into other people's shows on the Realm Network, which is so cool that they do this. And then I'll kind of do your fanfare then when I know a little bit more about you. So I will just say right now, welcome to Goldie's Closet. This is episode 130. And as much as I know so many of you all love sports entertainment and you love pro wrestling, a lot of you have turned me on to this really cool dude, this mysterious guy that we have on the show today. I don't even know his name. I don't even need to know his name. I just know that he's got over 200,000 subscribers on YouTube. And I have been shamefully addicted to his content all week. This is what I've been listening to, his stories, his scary stuff from it seems to be like it's one particular place that you get a lot of stories from, but we'll get into that more. And I love your stuff, and now I see why so many of our supporters, we share so many supporters, because your content is fantastic. And
Mhm.
just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you, and then I've got a bunch of questions, but this is just chill in 27 minutes. Like, get your brand out there to our brand.
Well, thank you so much for the great introduction. I am, I guess, gonna be, undeniably ignorant here. I have no idea what the brand's all about. I actually just started looking into it a couple of days ago.
Nice.
All the podcasts and everything on there. I'm a big wrestling fan myself. I actually
Okay.
have some figures over here and all that, but I'll leave those on the wall. But yeah, my name is Swamp Dweller. I have a podcast on pretty much every platform that you can find podcasts. I cover scary stories sent in by viewers and
Yes.
people who watch the show, and I've been doing it for about 5 years now. So it's slowly grown and kind of went from just originally kind of being about monsters and cryptids and things that go bump in the night to kind of eventually encompassing everything that's kind of just scary in general, and things that are whether it be from, like, say, a stalker story, or saying maybe a haunting at your house, or maybe you saw Bigfoot in the woods. And I think we've created kind of a cool little community where people can come and share stories that might kind of be laughed at or be looked at a little bit weird. And we've had people from we've had people just from, like, normal people who work at Walmart all the way up to police officers, even government officials who have come and shared stories from, like, say, UFOs, or just strange things that they can't really explain why they're out on the job and doing stuff like that. And we also do mini documentaries on cryptids and true crime stuff and
What is a
disappearances.
cryptid? What is a cryptid?
Cryptids are they're animals and or creatures, I guess you could say, that aren't proven to exist, but also aren't proven to not exist. So
Like Bigfoot or like Mothman, or is
yeah,
Bigfoot mo
that Bigfoot, Mothman, stuff like that. Like a good example of a classic cryptid is the story of Pongo, which back in the day there was these crazy stories from Africa of these big like beasts that were just way bigger but furry that would take people and assault them and eat them and take their wives and all that kind of stuff. And it turned out over the years, about 100 years ago, so more now, they were just great. Excuse me, they were just great apes. They were just gorillas. And stories like that, like the Kraken, the story of these giant squids that would come up and sink ships, they turned out just to be colossal squids and such like that. So cryptids are just, they're animals that are kind of more like romanticized and kind of turned into crazier stories, but they're all based in some sort of reality.
What about, and I mean, I totally wasn't even thinking about this, nor, I mean, I've got all these like pro questions, and then here's my stupid mind going to like, I have just been fascinated for years and years about the Loch Ness monster and seen like, it's just the top of an elephant or it's this or that. Like in all of your dealings, I don't know why that one always is so interesting to me. Like what, with everything that you've studied and everything that's come across your desk, like what do you know about that? So I'm just fascinated by that one.
The Loch Ness Monster is a classic, definitely. I've always been kind of mixed on ones like the Loch Ness Monster because they're so like I like to cover things that I've never heard of and other people might not have heard of. So I like to dig
Okay.
deep. But the Loch Ness Monster is one that I've looked at a lot and like I've thought about doing something on, but I just don't know what I don't like to be one of those people that regurgitates things and then doesn't add something to it. So if there's nothing that I can't add, I don't really normally cover it. But the Loch Ness Monster is just such an interesting case. Like there's so many like hoaxes and there's so many pictures at the same time that haven't been explained and people can't explain it. And there's just so many there's so many possibilities. So I think personally at one time there could have been something like Nessie living there for sure.
I do too, and that's what's so fascinating about your brand, and then so the Realm Network is based, it just got bought by Vince Russo. Vince Russo used to be, and if you don't know who Vince Russo is, he was with WWE, WWF, WCW. I did Impact Wrestling, so I was in pro wrestling for a long time, and met Vince, and we became friends. And then like 5 years ago, on his brand, we started doing like a Howard Stern, Robin gimmick vibe, and then I broke off and did my own show, Goldie's Closet, and then basically it's a lot of guests that I have on that are sports entertainment, that are sports, that are athletes. And then because I'm in music, you don't know this, but I front a rock band, the Goldilocks Band. So we are a nationally touring act, and we open for like crazy people. Everybody that there is to open for, we've pretty much opened for it because of the wrestling, fanfare and that privilege that came with being on TV. So we meet all of these rock stars, and they all come on and do the show and just talk about road stories or things that people wouldn't know. But like you and combing your social media, which is of course why we would connect, you're a really good soul. Again, I don't even know what your name is. So tell me what you want me to call you. Just Swamp Dweller? Is that what we're going by?
You can call me Robbie.
Okay, I didn't know. Just looking at your social media, like you're just a genuinely good guy. Like you're kind, you're kind-hearted, you're self-deprecated like I am. I just think that people, oh, don't say that. And it's like, no, it's funny. Like, I think it's funny to point out things about, like, I looked at that post where you were like, look at this gaunt, man with these long arms, and he looks like he might be somebody in the stories that you're listening to. And I'm like, that doesn't mean that you hate yourself. It's just funny. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
have funny things about myself, and I like people that have self-deprecating humor, because it just shows that they're real, not that they're fucked up or something like that. It just shows that you're real. So I was really excited when some of the people that we have on our Patreon, which I get to be really close with because they're members, and it's my friends, they all follow you. And I was like, what is this stuff? Because the Realm, Vince Russo's brand, we also have a lot of conspiracy theorists on there, and do a lot of stuff on aliens, and kind of a different way around what you're talking about. It's presented in a different way. but it's still the same meat and potatoes. So
Hmm.
they turned me on to you, and I just started listening to your content, and I'm looking at your channel and your pods, and everything is done so well, and it's so clean and crisp. And then I was reading, listening to you talking about your new promo. Maybe it's not new, but new to me, chilling. And let's talk a little bit about that. Like, that's totally customizable. Customizable, is that a word?
Yeah,
Not
customizable. Yeah.
customizable is a word, sure. Could not be with me. It's customizable. You down to like you can pick what kind of like nuance that you want, what special effects in the background. I was just like, this is priceless. And who thought of all of this? You said we'll get to chilling, but 5 years ago, what were you just dinking around and had a microphone and recorded a story and uploaded it and it worked? Or like, how does somebody just start this kind of very niche type of channel?
Honestly, it's such a weird story because I kind of have a like you have a very eclectic, diverse background. I have a very similar one. Like from an early age, I joined metal bands and punk bands, and
You
played
joined them?
shows. Yeah, I played bass at first, and then I
Oh,
started
what?
singing, and then I started playing guitar. I kind of just did a little everything, jack of all trades, master of none. And I did that all the way until I was probably about 20, and then I kind of wanted to do something that actually, gave me money and made money so I could actually pay my bills and stuff. Like I still love doing, metal and going to the shows and everything, but like eventually we all have to, I guess, grow up, I guess. So I was like, all right, let's do something more, reasonable. So I started just working normal jobs and warehouses and stuff. And I just always was really curious in like shows like Monster Quest and all these shows that always like went in depth on these Bigfoot creatures and these crazy sightings and stuff. And living in the middle of nowhere and growing up on farms and stuff, there were a lot of weird stories that I grew up hearing. So I was like, what if I looked into this or tried to do something on YouTube? Because at the time I also really was into YouTube. I was like, this is super cool. I would love to do something like this. So I kind of just at first had this podcast where I interviewed people from like Monster Quest and all these other kind of cryptid and Animal Planet kind of shows and stuff. And I kind of got bored of it after a while and took a break for a year. And I had a friend who was doing like these creepypasta readings, which are like they're like short, scary stories basically. And he was like, "I think you should try this. This would be interesting." So I tried it. At first, it wasn't my thing, but I remembered when I was doing this podcast, a lot of people sent me their stories but didn't want to come on the show. So they sent me their
Mm.
stuff anonymously, and I was like, "What if I just started reading those and put those into like some sort of like scary story format?" So I started doing that, and that's kind of where it all began initially. Is kind of the cryptid stories and the it kind of grew from there topic wise, but then I started doing more and more content over the years, and it was kind of just like happenstance. I happened to fall into it at the right time because it mainly came to a head. I was at work, I got hurt really bad, whole bunch of stuff went down, but I kind of had no choice. I was like, I need to make this work, and luckily at the same time, YouTube was like, we're gonna make this work. So
Don't you love these? And I just love stories like this. Is this yet like your full-time gimmick then? Or do you do other,
mhm.
because I have to do other things too. Like I supplement other ways, or are you basically paying the bills with just this?
If I wanted to, we probably could just do YouTube, but like I kind of opened this. I took this opportunity to kind of like make this like a whole business, kind of just
I
like a whole.
that's what I was wondering.
So we do stuff like everywhere. Like we've got like Spotify original stuff that's just on Spotify. We've got other shows that are coming out that we're producing now, and we've started like branding things. Like recently, we have our own hot chip flavor we put out, stuff like that. Just kind of expanding in general. Just that's kind of always what I wanted to do is just kind of be my own boss. Like I've never was happy working for other people, so working
Please
for
tell
myself
me.
is the best option.
Please tell me that you're going to do some sort of book or working on that. That would be really cool.
I've definitely thought about it for a long time. I've just kind of always thought, I was like, what would I talk about? I don't feel like I'm that interesting, and I haven't
You
found like
would
a topic yet.
you would take 10 of your best stories that you um, have your lawyer talk about whether or not you can publish them or not, or maybe change some things around so that, somebody isn't coming after you for their cut, or make a deal with the people where you got your stories from. Or you've been doing this long enough, write your own type of story. Do
Mhm.
5 to 10 stories in a really cool book and find some of your artistic friends, team up with them, do a work for hire commission, and have it be a really badass illustrated horror type that, I mean, if you knew our patrons, our brand members, people that subscribe to the realm, like they like sports entertainment, they love wrestling, they love conspiracy, aliens, and horror, like, and metal. Like it just all goes into like, I've got one guy that every morning I wake up to, if you're listening to this, Big Evil, I wake up to some sort of message about Slayer. Like he just wants us to, I mean, it's just like, that would be such a great tabletop type book. And you could do limited edition, you could do print by demand. There's so many options that you wouldn't be out of pocket, but your brand is just so beautiful and it's so well done that like it's just already illustrated in any like a cadaver could imagine your stories, you know, let alone
Mhm.
somebody with a heartbeat. Like they're really well done. Like you're, I would just start branding the shit out of your stuff. Even see this, look at that, isn't that cool? um Even your little guy back there, you know,
Mhm.
like have some people draw, I don't know where you got that from or if it's an original art, but like have limited edition things, pins, pendants, blah blah blah. Like we just had a huge meeting about, like, one guy is just pulling in six figures only making limited edition pins, and like
Wow.
everybody at the network was just like WTF, like we need some pins, you know, if that's that guy's only gig. Like you're doing so good. I'm just really excited for you. And this chilling thing, how did tell us about that? Like how did that start? Did you just bump into somebody that just happens to make an app, or like what's that all about?
I can't take too much credit on Chilling. Chilling is a creation of my good friend Being Scared and his associate. He recruited me to come and narrate stories for them alongside some other people like Let's Read and Your Maker and some other popular YouTube narrators. And it's like really cool, like you said earlier. It's like fully customizable. You can change the background to any ambient noise you want, whether it's rain, thunderstorms, fire,
Fire.
music. They just added like 3 or 4 new options today, like for background wise, and they're always adding new stuff. Like there's a old school radio, like original like 20s, 30s, 40s like radio broadcast of like horror stuff. There's classic novels that print up like Dracula, Frankenstein. Then there's stories that are sent in by viewers, just like my show, and hours of being narrated and uploaded by professionals all the time. And it's just continuing to grow. It's gonna be like a Netflix in a sense very soon too, because they'll be adding video content. It's gonna be really cool. It's just a really cool place to be. I'm really excited and honored that they added me on there. Right now they're doing a bunch of giveaways right now for people who start the free trial. I think they're doing a PS5 giveaway currently. They did an Xbox One S one recently, or Xbox X, something like that. I'm not too hip to date with all the new gaming systems, but it's just a really cool thing to be a part of. I'm really excited, and it's just continuing to grow every day.
I love it. And you were talking about 1920s and old school stuff, which one of the questions that I had was, you're so good at that. This is you reading all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because it's really, really well done. And I started like acting, modeling, doing voiceovers when I was 3. So have you had, you know, a different modeling or commercial background, or like how are you such a good reader? Because you're really good. Like you sound like somebody trained like I am.
I actually got asked this not long ago, and like it's like flattering because growing up, I actually got made fun of a lot when I read out loud, and
Oh my god, always the
I
story, right?
it was crazy because I have my dad's even worse, but like I have a slight speech impediment. It's not bad now since I do this every day, but it was really, I have like a bad slur. So like there's certain words that like I'm sure people listen, they're like, why can't you just say this? I'm like, I'm trying, but I cannot. But honestly, I've never had any real training. I just always loved the radio. I grew up in Florida, so we had storms all the time. So we always power knocked out every summer, every fall as well for the hurricanes. And we'd be sitting there listening to the radio. And I just always loved listening to it, especially in the morning. We go to school. And it's just something I loved. And I was into music. So I kind of had like the frontman thing, when you're on stage and you have
Yep,
that persona and you're
yep.
commanding the crowd and all that. So that kind of just like made me want to do something more. And I mean, at first I was really, really bad. Like I literally whispered in my first couple of videos. I didn't know what to do. I was like, this is really nerve-wracking, but it's just more of this practice makes perfect. It's like singing, you know, anybody can sing if they practice. It's just a muscle, you know? So if you keep doing it more and more, you get better and better. And like, that's kind of just how it all was. Is just, I've done it for 5-6 years now. And now I don't have an excuse to not be at least okay. So if I can't read a story decently at this point, I should have probably just gave up, I guess.
It's very broadcast, but with like a modern twist. Like the way that you end your phrases and how you speak is very trained broadcast. So that's how I was like, I wonder what his background is. And what were that's a cool story about Florida and the hurricanes. And like, again, you're making lemonade out of lemons when shit hit the fan with that. Cause you could have like said, oh, I just got a crack habit, or you know what I mean? Like we went out in the back and did this or whatever, but you did something positive, which which is listening to radio and using your senses you develop without being able to see something. Your imagination is then harnessed and developed, much like I used to work in a photo lab when I was in high school and college. And my job was to go into the dark and see. It was completely like not a crack of light, because I had to change out the paper in these big, huge, antiquated rolls that were at like the mall, where your 4x6 pictures, now they're all like digital, but back in the day it was like it had to go through cycles of different photo stops, stop baths, chemicals to make your picture come out. And like I would be in this back room in complete dark, changing things out, and like you screwed it up, and you screwed up thousands of dollars worth of people's products. So you really had to get your shit together back there. And I got so good at knowing where everything was and really concentrating on it with my eyes closed that even now in my normal life away from that, when things get stressful for me, or if I really need to concentrate, like backstage or on gear, like I literally shut my eyes and people are like, what's her problem? But like I literally, sometimes I can feel my gear better, or I'm thinking if my eyes are shut, because I go back to a time when it was feast or famine. Like I had to get it right. And all the noise was gone, and literally all the noise was gone. I just was concentrating with my hands. And I was wondering where you got that from, because when I was a kid, you listened to the old horror really, really late at night. My dad was a politician. He would go campaign, and then it would be putting away all the folding chairs and all the bullshit. And then a tired little kid from Caucasus driving home, and he'd turn on like these, who was it? Was it Vincent Price on the radio, or Orson Welles, or really, really old, like with the crackly, sounded like 20s radio. And like, it would be horror stories. And later on, I would find out, somebody gave a tidbit of, I remember one of the stories was a vampire biting into somebody's neck. And they revealed that how they did that gimmick was a peppermint lifesaver. And they would just bite on it. And that's what they used every time the vampire was biting. And I was like, this guy, this Robbie, this swamp dweller, you just remind me of an old soul, like trapped in some young metal body. Like, it's like you like the old school stuff. Like, were there any people like that were your influences, or that you maybe like listened to later on? Like, obviously you're younger than I am, but like, is there anybody that you pull from for storytelling?
The only two that are like really like prominent, I'd say, are definitely Rod Sterling from Twilight Zone. Really love that. I still watch that almost every
Great.
night. And Robert Stack from Unsolved Mysteries.
Let's talk about him for a second.
Robert Stack is I remember the first time ever seeing him on TV. I grew up in so many different places. That's when people are like, where are you from? I just say the South, because whether it was Tennessee, Kentucky, North Carolina, or Florida, I was all over the place. But most of my young years, I was in Southern Florida, and I just remember this old big tube TV that my dad had. I just remember on it, there would just be Robert Stack, and he'd just be the opening scene of Unsolved Mysteries, where he's just, he's walking out and he's talking about the case. And I'll just never forget it, just like the zoom in on his face when, it goes in. Same thing with Rod Sterling. I remember just I'd wake up super early sometimes. It'd be like 3, probably 2:30 a.m. in the morning, and my dad would fall asleep with the TV on. I'd walk out there, and you just hear the classic "da, da, 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 da," and then Rod Serling come on with a "do do 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 do," and I just always really wanted to be that guy for some reason. I was like, this guy just coming out so ominous, so nobody knows anything about him. He's just so sleek, so cool. And that's kind of just what I was growing up all the time. I was always very quiet, didn't really talk. Consequently, obviously got kind of made fun of for that. They're like, oh, this guy's just some weirdo, some creep, probably gonna be some loser or something. But in reality, I was just always focused on one thing, and that was just kind of doing something better than the tiny town I lived in. And my family, not the greatest life growing up, very broken. So it's like, everybody's got their
Mhm.
crest to bear. So for me, it's like I just want to be better than that, and I want to
Yep.
do something that's gonna just make people smile, and whether it be through being scared and people smile and come together through that, or it be through music and seeing people get their aggression out, especially with metal and stuff, and or anything else that I do. It's just all for one goal, just to be better than where we came from.
I love it. We've got just a few more minutes left, and I'll respect your time, and I appreciate everything you've given us so far. Um, how do you submit? It says right up at your, what is it, youtube.com, Swamp Dweller Reads. It says right up at the top, like how to submit stories, correct?
Mhm.
That's the best way?
Yeah,
And what do you look,
swampdweller.net.
go ahead one more time.
Swampdweller.net. Yeah.
What is what do you look for in a story that really, if somebody sends you something, like what elements captivate you and make you think, I want to cover this? Like I want to tell this story. What do you look for?
First and foremost, I'd probably say the quicker ones that I'm going to click on and check out are probably going to be the ones that are formatted pretty decently, like, grammar, punctuation, spacing, actual paragraphs. But other than
Wow.
that, because you'd be surprised actually, most stories I probably spend probably more time,
Oh
fixing
no.
things up, but that's just part of the job. But
No, it's not.
hon-
That's setting the bar high.
honestly, I really just I look for stories that are strange, I guess. They don't necessarily have to be like the most horrifying, terrifying, bone, chilling story, but like I love to find things that like you haven't heard before. Like I love like lost time stories, just stories that like make you scratch your head. Because as a kid, I really fell in love with stories like The Sixth Sense and The Happening, M. Night Shyamalan type things, just like psychological thrillers, movies that like were creepy, but you had to think about it, or you'd
Yes.
kind of be confused at the end, like what the heck. Like I love those kind of movies. Movies that most people say I don't like it because I don't get it are the movies that I normally love because I'm like, oh man, that was such a good twist. So I look for like good stories like that, and I just like to. I do a lot of topic stuff, so very niche, very specific things. So um, I just like to. So I guess topics are obviously another thing I'm looking for, but like I said, it just mainly comes to how interesting the story is, how strange it was, and biggest thing, doesn't make sense. A lot of scary stories surprisingly don't make any sense. Like even like if it's very straightforward, even if it's like I was walking down the street, some guy chased me, and I felt like I was in danger. That's kind of like the dime a dozen with that kind of story, but that doesn't really make any sense at the end of the day. You're like, well, why did you feel you were in danger? Just because a guy was running towards you in your direction doesn't mean he was coming towards you specifically. So
Okay.
it's just more like it doesn't make sense. And is this going to be something that's going to enthrall somebody? Is this something that's going to get somebody to suspend their disbelief? Is this something that so that somebody, even if it's not true, can somebody for a moment be like, wow, that I felt like this was happening to me? And I feel like that's where I come in for the most part is, obviously I try to read every story like it's something that happened to me specifically,
Mhm.
something that I can relate to. And that's why I like to find stories that I can relate to as well, because then it's easier for me to be like, oh man, I can invoke those emotions much easier if I've had a similar experience. That's why like my favorite stories are the ghost stories, because I grew up in a haunted house, like the house hands down, I still think about it all the time. Like, I don't know how to explain any of the things that used to happen there. Some people were like, there was a shadow at the corner of my eye. I can feel the chills in my shoulders sometimes. I'm like, oh man, because like I remember seeing that myself. So I'm just like, I feel like when I can relate to the story, it's something that makes it better for the listener.
Let's go ahead really quickly and remind everybody where to find you.
YouTube.com/Swamp Dweller Reads. You can find me on Twitter at Swamp Dweller YT, Instagram Swamp Dweller Official, and you can send in stories at swampdweller.net.
Let's just leave everybody with a story that sticks out in your mind, something that you either saw or you had somebody submit, or just something that you think about. Like, if you had to sum up your brand with one really good story, what's like the Reader's Digest version of one that still stumps you or creeps you out to this day?
This is a personal story. So this happened when I was about 14 years old, maybe right 14 years old. So at the time I was living in the Civil War cabin. It was built in 1803. We only know this because when we were cleaning the bushes behind the barn, I actually found the gravestones for the original people who made it, and they died 1813, so they lived there for 10 years. And it's a small Civil War cabin. Originally, it was just like one little room, and they've done some expansions, and there's one room on the top, and that's where I was living. So it was middle of the night. It was me and my two brothers. They're both older than me by probably like a year to 2 years, and we're playing Manhunt, which is basically just extreme hide and seek, basically. And we're not supposed to go outside because honestly, like past our little porch light, it's pitch black. We're 45 miles away from the nearest town.
Dude.
We're on farms. We have probably, I think we had 300 something acres, beef cattle, dairy cattle, all kinds, you name it, we had it. And so we're living the good old boy life out there, and nothing to do, no internet, no cable, nothing. Like, I mean, like nothing. And so we're playing. I decide to sneak out of my window, because if you go on the top out of my window, you can go on the roof. We have this metal roof, so it's like kind of slanted, but you can still chill up there. So I was hiding up there, and it was fall time, so it was probably end of August, maybe early September. And I remember it was just starting to get cool at night. It was the breeze was there, the leaves were starting to fall. And I just remember this year is the year the cicadas all came out. So they're everywhere. There's a million of them. And if you've ever heard cicadas, they're like deafening. It's like crickets, but on crack. Like, it's terrible. And, but I just remember all of a sudden everything went quiet, and I didn't really kind of think about it at first. And I just remember having this chill kind of go past my face from the wind. And I was like, oh man, it kind of sent it all the way down my spine. And then I heard what sounded like something land on the other end of the roof, but I could see the whole roof. There's nothing there. And I'm just like, okay, this is weird. So what I do is I kind of shimmy my way back down through the window, and I call my brothers to come up there. They're kind of, complaining that I broke the rules and all that. But I'm like, yo, we need to check something out. I think somebody's trying to break into the house or something, which isn't likely. Our nearest neighbor is like 4 or 5 miles down the road. But you never know. Weird stuff happens. We've literally caught people breaking into our shed and stuff at night, and we're so far away from anybody. So, the possibilities. So he comes up, and he's probably like 6'3", 200 something pounds, big dude. So we're up there together, and suddenly everything goes quiet again. And then the same exact thing happens. It sounds like something lands on the other side of the roof. And then it sounds like it's like comes running towards us. He's here, do, 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 do. And then it's like going like around circles, like do, 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 do. And like you can hear like the impressions, like it sounds like hooves almost. We have goats at the time as well. So it sounds like when we're trying to get them on the trailer and stuff, that's what it's sounding like. But it sounds heavy. It sounds like it's like 100, 200 pounds, like a giant goat. But I'm putting my hand out, and I'm not feeling anything. I don't feel any wind, no coldness, nothing. But while this is all happening, again, it's completely quiet. There's no sounds, no cicadas, no nothing. And then suddenly it just stops. It sounds like it runs off the side of the building and just jumps off in the air. And all the sound comes back like instantly. Like suddenly it's like a cacophony of cicadas and crickets, and we can hear coyotes in the distance all of a sudden. It's like one of the weirdest things I can't explain. It's like a cliche almost, that like everything goes quiet, and then the moment it like that feeling goes away, everything comes back. It's like you get like put in like this vacuum almost. And that's an experience that I cannot explain, and it's probably my go-to story to share, because it's just like I can't explain that. I didn't do drugs, I didn't drink, I was 14 years old, and I was sober of mind. I wasn't tired, I wasn't hallucinating, so I don't know what else to say other than there was some invisible goat creature running on my roof that night and tried to mess with us. I don't
And
know what else to say.
your brothers saw it too or heard it too, right?
Yeah, we were both standing there basically wetting ourselves. Like, what the hell's happening right now? There was, we don't really talk about it. We have mentioned it, but there's, like said, we don't really know what else there is to add to it. But
Yeah.
one of those really strange experiences. And we moved out of there shortly after. That same house, we would see like shadow people all the time, and just hear footsteps in the attic. But like the attic was like a crawl space like this big, so it's like nobody could feasibly be walking in it. So it was just one of those places where you got to live there to experience it. And whether you believe in ghosts or not, you're gonna believe in something after being at that place for a couple of nights.
Well, I totally get it. If you only knew where I live, but that's another podcast.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever need to come on and promote something or share with us some new endeavors, please do. You are an absolutely just gracious and wonderful guest. And I'm really excited for people to hear this because it's just a nice change up from just always wrestling, which is so much that I cover. So I can't thank you enough. And I'll do your fanfare after you jump off. But ladies and gentlemen, want to thank you for joining us on the all new Realm Network in association with Russo's Brand Bro, where the pros are bros. The pros are pros, bros, the pros are pros. This has been our guest, Mr. Robbie, Swamp Dweller. And at the end of every podcast, we always just like clap however you want to. But I roll the claps. Clap, clap, clap. Thank you. Oh, yours was really loud. Thank you.
Oh, no.
Episode 130. Thanks, everybody. Signing off. As always, I remind you to just be free and stay golden. And that's really it. And then I'll edit this and put your stuff in the beginning and make a nice promo. So, dude, I'm so proud of you. You're just crushing it. Good for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Gotta be
This was fun.
so excited. Yeah, they Vince just bought the Realm Network, and then he's not changing things, but he's like, it used to be like podcasts. Some of mine were like an hour and a half. And he's like, bro, nothing over 27 minutes. So it's making my job a lot easier and just kind of get to it. And he just said people are like snoozing after 11 minutes, 16 minutes, they're out. So, you know, I can't like with a good conscience have people take their time out for 15 minutes, but a half an hour right under that, which yours is right at a half an hour. That's good to be able to promote. And you know what? That's how you build your brand organically, is by people, third-party credibility, me saying, hey, there's this really cool guy. There's this really cool channel. Check it out. And then they listen to it. No different than, you know what Patreon is, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I do video calls for my higher tiers. And one of the video calls that I was on, the guy was just talking about you. And I'm like, wait, hold on a second. I gave him more time, of course. And I like looked you up and he was like, you ought to get him on the podcast. And I was like, well, cool. And then I started checking you out. I mean, it's just because, and he is, we're off there. He's a janitor. And so he listens to your show all night long. He cleans for a huge company in Pittsburgh.
That's awesome.
And he just listens to you all night long. So, you know, and supports everybody and is a great guy. So it's nice when you hear somebody really enjoying something and you know that that it's real. So thank you. I'll definitely give you a tag and let you know a heads up when it's out. If you want to share it, that'd be great. Just fun to cross promote. And anything you ever need from me, just let me know, Robbie.
Yeah, definitely. Likewise.
Okay, sweetheart. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye, honey. Interesting. No, I don't want to end the broadcast. Bros, what is up? It's Goldie's Closet episode 130. Creeping along as the numbers go up and up for the amount of podcasts that I've got under my belt solo. Maybe remember A Bucket Full of Chicken Necks, where I was Vince Russo's co-host. Then it broke off into Goldie's Closet. And you know what? We love to cover sports entertainment and we love to cover wrestling, rock and roll, and all the bands that we've opened for. We like to have celebrities and stars on. And one new thing that one of the brand members, one of our patrons turned us on to is, speaking of creepy and creaking, is a really, really amazing brand, the Swamp Dweller. It's a YouTube channel. Their podcasts on every platform known to personkind. They even have a new app called Chilling, which they are featuring their content on. I cannot wait for you to meet our next guest, Mr. Robbie. He's scary. His whole brand and his whole business is scary stories, unsolved mysteries, just everything and anything that goes bump in the night. Without further ado, Goldie's Closet episode 130. Please welcome Realm Network brand family, our next guest, the Swamp Dweller, Mr. Robbie. Here is our bumper. Ooh, Goldie's Closet, episode 130, where the pros are pros. The all-new Realm Network bros. It's usually wrestling and sports entertainment, but not this week. This week, it's going to be a little more scary, a little more creepy. As somebody with a huge following, a huge YouTube channel, he's a storyteller, he's a narrator of everything and everything that goes bump in the night. Under your bed, in your closet, in your back alley, under your bed, in your closet, in the attic, really anywhere creepy. He has stories that will make the hair on your arms stand. Ooh, you got to check him out. The Swamp Dweller, only and exclusively on Russo's brand, Goldie's Closet, episode 130. This one's going to scare the shit out of you.